Review forming and naming compounds. I'm going to go ahead and turn this sheet sideways since that's how you're going to be working on it anyway. And it says for each pair of ions, find the oxidation numbers and write them in the box next to the chemical symbol. So for each of these, you'll need to find their oxidation numbers. Remember, that's the charge that a substance has, an atom or polyatomic ion, that it has when it bonds with another atom. So if you're looking up the oxidation numbers for an individual atom, go to your periodic table, and remember it has to do with which group it's in. So Na is in group 1, so you know it's going to have a +1 oxidation. So we would go ahead and put a +1 in this box. Mg is in group 2, so it'd be a +2, and so on. You're going to find all of those. If you have a polyatomic ion, however, you'll need to look at your polyatomic ion chart. So here I have CO3, so I would find CO3 carbonate, which is a -2 charge. So I'm going to put a -2 here so I know what the charge is. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to skip this one. No, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and use this one. NO3 is nitrate right here, and it's a -1 charge. Okay, so let me show you a couple of examples of how this is going to work. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at where the boxes come together for these different ions. So here's Na and CO3 coming together to make a compound. So I'm going to have Na and CO3, but first I need to know that it's making a proper compound. Remember the process where we looked at those two charges, and if they already added up to 0, then we didn't have to do anything. We would just write out NaCO3. But these don't add up to 0. So instead we're going to cross them over. So the 2 becomes the subscript for Na, so I'm going to write a 2. All right, bring that 2 down. And the 1 becomes the subscript for CO3, but since I don't write 1s, I don't need to make that subscript. So Na2CO3, because 2 positive 1s makes +2, which cancels out the -2 from CO3. Underneath that, you're going to name it. So here's Na is sodium. We already looked that up on our periodic table, and CO3 was carbonate. When you name all of these compounds, they're all ionic because they all have ions that make them up. So we don't worry about these numbers here. We're just going to name them. So sodium carbonate. In this one, with our nitrate, +1, -1 already add up to 0. So we're going to just write out NaNO3, and then we would name it just like we named our sodium carbonate here. We're going to follow the same rule. Down here, again, +2, -2 already adds to 0, so I'm going to put that in here with our MgCO3, but in this case, see how I've got +2 and -1? When I cross this over, my 1 becomes the subscript for Mg, which we don't write, Mg. We don't write 1s for subscripts. And then I bring my 2 over as the subscript for NO3. Now NO3 already has a subscript, and it's a polyatomic ion. So I want to make sure that I'm saying, hey, I need 2 NO3s. I don't need 2 times this O3, I need 2 of this whole thing NO3. So I'm going to put NO3 in parentheses because this means, hey, I'm talking about this whole thing all together, NO3. And now I can put that 2 subscript saying I have 2 NO3s, which each has a -1 charge. So those 2 -1s makes -2, canceling out the +2 for our magnesium. And again, I just name it magnesium nitrate. For the ones that have a single element here, like chlorine is a -1 charge, I know from my periodic table because it is in group 17. So it has a -1 charge because it would need 1 more electron to make its 8 octet, right? So -1 needs 1. So I have a -1 charge for this one. And when I make this compound, and +1 -1 already adds up, so NaCl. When I name this, I already know Na is sodium. Don't forget, if it's a single atom instead of a polyatomic ion like these are, that I have to change the ending to "ide." So chloride, not chlorine. So sodium chloride. This chloride lets me know, the IDE ending tells me, hey, this chlorine is in a compound with the thing that I've labeled before it. Okay, so you're going to fill in this entire chart by crossing over those charges if you need to. Remember, if they already add up to 0, you don't cross anything, you just write them the way it is, and you're going to name them underneath each formula. If you do still have any questions, please make sure you come ask.